Welcome to the Shifting People podcast, where we go deep into the weeds with leaders on the front lines of people management in the service industry. We interview the best minds in HR and talent acquisition, along with owner-operators, franchisees, and general managers to bring you real insights that you can actually apply in your business today. I'm your co-host, Derek Williamson.
And I'm Kathleen McDonough, and it's time to get to work. And today we have Jolene Clayton, operating partner at Whataburger. Jolene, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure to be on here.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome. And you've been in food service for 17 years.
Pretty close to that. Yeah, 17 years will be this year. It's been a long time. I'd spent most of my career in casual dining, and the last tail bit of it's been in the QSR quick service industry. So I've got a well-rounded resume when it comes to food industry. I've worked probably every position you can think of, from server to assistant manager to a line cook to a dishwasher, a busser, you name it. I've probably done it at operational level.
Wow. And it started with being a graveyard server at a casino, right?
It was, yes. I started as a graveyard server in a casino, and I did that for a couple of months, and that was an interesting thing. You got to meet some interesting characters, but I actually learned a lot just in that first initial thing, and I found my love for working in the industry right then and there, just the interactions that I had with my guests. So that was really cool, and that's really when I started learning about what hospitality was. And then as I worked with the company, I moved up as a assistant general manager within about a year and a half, give or take. So got me into the management level at that point. And then from there, for the last 15 years, been nothing but leadership positions to where I've been able to really hone my skills.
Yeah, I'm curious, Jolene, if you could tell us a little bit. I'm just curious, just with your background going from full service into quick service. I'm curious what things you brought from full service that were maybe a new perspective to QSR. I think a lot of folks, some folks maybe jump between the two, but a lot of folks we talked to have only been one or the other. And so curious, what kind of different perspectives did you bring when you transitioned into more of the QSR space?
Sure. So I'll start with why I went to the QSR, because that was an interesting story to start with. I had a colleague that I worked with at Cracker Barrel, and he had left the company and went to join Whataburger, the QSR. And he was there for about a year or so. He reached out to me, and said, "Hey, I'm telling you, you need to come check out this company. It's a really great company." I was like, "I am not working for a QSR. You have lost your mind." And he's, "No, I'm serious. Come check it out. I'm serious. Just check it out." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I went and I spent a little bit of time with them. I got to learn the culture. I got to see what was going on in the restaurant and how it was different, right? It was a different experience. It was more hospitality driven versus get your food and get out. And I was like, that's really cool. I've never really seen that side of a Whataburger. I've had them. I grew up with Whataburger, but I've always gone through drive-through, and it's known as Whataburger. So you're always waiting for forever for your food. I'd never seen the other side of it. So it was really cool to see that part. And that's really what brought me into going into the QSR industry and Whataburger in specific. You have a lot of those companies out there that say, "We care about you and we want to take care of you." And you never really see that. You just hear them say the words, but Whataburger really did go above and beyond and show that they care. Like, example, during the COVID era, most companies were saying, "Hey, shut down the doors, close it. We got to cut costs, X, Y, and Z," right? Whataburger was like, "We don't care about labor cost. We want to make sure we're taking care of our employees, and we want to make sure that we're taking care of the community. So just bring in as many people as you can to make sure they're being paid. And then let's feed the community, because people are going to need to eat, right? So we want to make sure we're taking care of both sides." And I was like, wow, nobody does stuff like that. That's really cool. So that's why I went into the QSR industry. Now, to your question, what kind of skills and sets did I bring in? For Whataburger, is really my diverse view in hospitality. Because whenever you're in full service, it's really all about hospitality. It's not about speed. It's about catering to the guest and really going above and beyond and really showing them an outstanding experience, where Whataburger does better at that than most other QSR concepts. But I think for me, it was an easier transition, because I've seen some managers come in from full service to QSR and they did not Like it was a big struggle because it's really different. It's a lot more challenging because it is more like, hey, casual dining is 10 to 15-minute checks, QSR 4 or 5 minutes. You got the hustle bustle. And you also have different, I would say, candidate pool to select from, which is what was interesting because I thought it would be similar, but it's really like really different. It's harder to find that more motivated go-getter kind of mentality in the QSR industry than you see in full service.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just a stigma around the QSR industry, the same one that you had before you went to Whataburger? That, oh, I'm not going to QSR. I'm going to stay in full service. I want hospitality. I want to learn this stuff. Do you think that's why, or do you think it has other things to do with it?
Yeah, I think it's a multiple things. I think part of it is the stigma of QSRs. Most people have that mindset of a quick service restaurant is just a high schooler's job to where they can get in, get their foot in, make a little money, make a car note or something, get a cell phone paid, and then move on with their life once they graduate college. But they don't really ever look at it as a career opportunity. And the other side of it, I think the opportunity is that they don't really show pay, like pay rates. QSRs are typically deemed as being lower pay rate than a full scale service. But like I have managers that work for me that make more than general managers at some full service restaurants. I think we're too quiet as an industry about how well we take care of our team and how well we take care of. We offer stuff like PTO. Like who does PTO for regular hourly employees? Like that just doesn't happen. But we don't talk enough about the benefits of the QSR plus the mindset of, oh, that's just a kid's thing. There's no growth. There's no opportunity to make an actual career out of it.
Yeah. And it sounds like both Whataburger and you yourself within your unit, you're changing that stigma, right? You're putting things in place to grow people, to develop them, and to change that stigma.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's important to me. Like whenever I bring people in, I have the conversation that I usually have with everybody and be like, hey, it's not your average QSR. I promise you, this is a whole different cup of tea. And I'll ask them what they want to do with their life. What is it that you see yourself doing in the next year, 2 years? Because I'm looking for somebody that wants to be with me for the next 4 years. I'm not looking for somebody that wants to come in and work for 3 months and then go find another job. So that's one of the most important questions you can ask when it comes to hiring practices, is like looking for that longevity, because then you know you're going to have more of an ownership mentality in that candidate when you're building your culture within your unit.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And as you're speaking to it, I wonder, tell me if this is true or not. I'm curious. We've talked to a number of folks who, specifically in the QSR space, who have worked their way up, like literally started frontline, and then either within the same franchise or maybe they jumped franchises, but still within QSR. And it almost seems like often there's a little bit more upward mobility or upward opportunity in QSR than perhaps full service, at least and maybe that's partly like complexity of the operation, et cetera. But I'm curious, does that hold true? Is that something that you see as more of a possibility in QSR that is a little more challenging in full service?
I think that's a tricky question because it really depends on, number one, the company, on whether or not they're in a growth stage or they're in a stable stage or they're in a decline stage, right? So clearly, if they're in declining, they're not doing a whole lot of promoting or anything. But when you get with a company, full service or in QSR, you want to look for those growth restaurants, the ones that are in the growth mode, because those are the ones that are really going to give you an opportunity for growth and promotion. I think that from what I've seen in the casual dining setting, it's been more of who you know to get where you need to be versus how well you do your job, or you have to have a degree, or you have to have college credits or this and that, rather than coming in as a server and working your way up to a general manager or something like that. It's a lot more challenging in casual dining because they do have a lot more quote unquote requirements that are necessary in their eyes versus you go to a QSR they don't require anything. You can come in, high school students can come in and work there for 2-3 years. So, hey, they can be promoted to a shift manager once they hit the age of 18. So it's just, I think it's easier in the QSR industry, definitely, to move up just because of the requirements that companies tend to look for in both sides.
Yeah, and it's easier for a wider range of people in QSR, I guess this is what you are saying. I want to pivot slightly and just get into a little bit about your work with your team members. So when we spoke before, you told me a bit about your philosophy on investing in your team members, not only at work, but in their personal lives as well, which I think everyone can agree is one of the most important things, especially someone new to QSR, someone that wants to grow and advance themselves. And this is their one shot, their one opportunity, and you're giving them that opportunity and you're pouring into them, like our past guest, Anthony, would say. Tell us a little bit about your outlook there and your process.
Yeah, for sure. I think the number one thing that I see when it comes to any concept in either part of the food industry is we still use the term manager. We don't use the term leader when we should be using leaders. So in my unit, I don't ever refer to anybody as a manager or a shift manager or whatever you may be. They're always leaders. Like we have certified restaurant trainers. So they're my certified restaurant trainer leaders, right? There's always a leader tag to it. So it brings a different type of mentality when you hear leader versus manager, because it's the saying anybody can be a manager, but not everybody can be a leader. And it brings more pride when you start with just simple words that you use within the unit. And then whenever it comes to investing in your team, you want to do it on a work level, but also a personal level without, of course, crossing any HR lines. Don't get too crazy with that. But you want to keep it on the safety zone, really getting to know your family members. Hey, I heard you were talking the other day. I heard your mom was in the hospital. How's she doing? Just those little small casual conversations. And when you're doing one-on-ones, which is one of the most important things that leaders don't do. Like they don't have one-on-ones with their team. They don't have one-on-ones with their management team. They don't have one-on-ones with anybody. They just come in and give you direction and then call it a day, right? But they don't ever give you that actual feedback. And if you have one-on-ones that are filled with compassion, where you're truly like giving them feedback on their performance and also getting to know them as a human and an individual, it makes them feel so much more valued that you're going to get a lot more ambition and drive and ownership out of that person when you do things like that. So I am consistent about having one-on-ones with my team members throughout the week, and with my management team as well, so that I can get to know them on a personal level and also give them feedback on what they're doing. Be like, hey, Casey, I saw the other day that you weren't doing run cooking. Let's talk about that. By the way, how's your dog doing? I know he's at the vet the other day. Still having that kind of, hey, I care about you with empathy type of conversation, but still being aware of the expectations that it is a job and we do have things we have to do. I do have a really good example. I had this young lady that worked for me back home from Shreveport, Louisiana. And she was just the sweetest thing, but she would always come in and she would be up and down in her moods. And I started trying to have one-on-ones with her, and she wasn't really opening up to me a whole lot. She would just say, I'm fine. Oh, it's this. It's good. Well, I eventually got her to open up to me because I kept being consistent on sitting down and talking to her and seeing how things were going with her. And she was struggling with mental health. And there was just some things in her personal life that was really affecting her. And I could see it in her work and I could see the potential in her as well. And it's okay, how can I help her? And just for me being consistent on having those one-on-ones conversations with her opened the door to the point where she felt comfortable enough to come and talk to me. And I eventually got her worked out to where she started seeing a therapist and that she was actually going in the right direction. And to this day, she's got the happiest well-being about her life. She's doing very well in her career. She did leave the company and go do something else that she wanted to do, but she's still doing very well for herself. And that's just a prime example of how you can invest in your team on an individual one-on-one kind of conversation with them just to show that you care and what kind of impact that can make.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like one thing that I would shout from the rooftops, because I used to own an ice cream store franchise and I didn't do this. This was just not a thing I was familiar with. And then when I transitioned to working with Kathleen in our company, which is a tech company, this is like one-on-ones are very commonplace. And so as soon as I did that, I realized, why the heck wasn't I doing this before?
Yeah.
Because you're exactly right. Like, it's all about making space so people come into the conversation knowing, hey, this is my time to be able to bring up like those personal issues I'm struggling with or issues at work. And similarly, they're coming in with the headspace of this is also where you might be giving them feedback. Because that's, I feel like so often in this space, like especially QSR, is people are at different shifts, different times. So it's hard to maybe connect with people and have that time. And it's like those little things that build up, right? It's little points of feedback that you don't really have space to give. You don't want to give it to them like while they're on the floor or in the middle of something. And then similarly, they're maybe hanging on to some emotional issue, some personal issue that they're struggling but can't articulate it. I'm really glad you brought that up. And I'm curious, how does that affect like the overall team culture when you really put caring first? Like, how have you seen that sort of pay out over time?
It's amazing. Your tenure of your employees grows significantly. I still have about 60% of my original first hires from when I opened up my unit, which is absurd. That never happens, especially in the QSR industry. Typically, you have 145% turnover within the first 6 months, let alone within the first year.
Yeah, sorry,
but I still do.
What was that number again? The first number? What was the retention?
Oh, I have about 60%.
That's incredible. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to emphasize how exceptional that is. But
it's unheard of, right? And so what I did to create that was creating such a positive environment for my team where they wanted to be there and they enjoyed being in there and they knew that it was a safe place where they could come and talk to anybody. It was open door policy, right? I would have one-on-ones with them. I would create games and do contests with them to incentivize them to be excited about being a word, not just to give away stuff, but just to make them feel like, hey, this is a home away from home. That was my number one most important goal that I wanted to do when I opened up this unit was I want this to be a family away from a family, right? So when people come in here, they want to be here and they want to help support and grow each other because that's how you're going to see results in your metrics. We're taught that in any industry that you're in, you chase numbers. It's all about metrics. It's all about the bottom line. It's all about X, Y, and Z, right? But if you shift that focus to really pay attention to the employee morale, everything balances, like everything goes in the right direction, right? Your guest satisfaction starts shooting through the roof. Your speed of service starts going down because your team just now owns part of the business with you and they celebrate the successes. And it's just the most amazing feeling that you can feel as a leader.
Wow. The team owning part of the business with you, like that is just throw it up on a wall, tell everyone in QSR or throughout hospitality, that's the goal, right? That is it. And you figured it out. I also love what you said where you wanted to create an environment of work being a home away from home for people. And it obviously immediately, like my mind shoots right to doing that in a poor way was Michael Scott. And you're doing it in such an amazing way on the other end of the spectrum. And with the example of the woman who had some mental health problems and needed help and you helped her, that sometimes if you're providing a home away from home, first of all, that's amazing for everyone. Second of all, there might be people that don't have a home. And so you're the only home that they have. So now they're getting a home for the first time. And that is incredibly powerful. I also love the fact that that woman didn't open up to you at first, right? It took her some time. And I'm the same way. If I sit down with someone and I'm having one-on-ones with them, I'm not going to tell them what's going on with me right away. It's going to take 3, 4, 5 conversations, interactions.
That's years, Kathleen, before you
It was years before I would open up to Derek, and now I won't stop talking to him and telling him my problems. But I think a lot of people are that way, right? They're guarded, especially when an employer asks them questions about their personal life. They're not used to that, right? It's, oh, if I tell you what's going on at home, is that going to affect my work in some way? Or are you actually going to care? So I think one thing I'm noticing about you is that you not only ask the questions, but you care and you bring that then into everything, right? Like it radiates in everything you do with your employees, and you help teach them like real life skills as well. Just, I can't speak highly enough about the things that you're saying that you're doing with your team. And it's clear that it's paying off and it's working. I don't know that I even had a question. I just wanted to, honestly, Derek
really
probably has a question. He always does. I just want to say how important all of this is and how great you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Joe, I have maybe a very specific question just about the celebrations and contest internal things. Because again, from my past experience, I don't know that I ever did that super well. And honestly, I stopped doing a lot of those things because I was like, this feels cheesy. And I think it's not really motivating employees in the right direction. Maybe I'll do something different. But I'm curious, like any real specific ones, like big wins, things that got really great adoption or just like really good buy-in that you can share?
Yeah. So one of the main things that I do in my unit is I do what we call Win Wednesday. So Win Wednesday is where we spend the day celebrating our team, whether it be an individual team member, it's a manager, or even a guest, right? We just celebrate things that have happened throughout the week, and we do what we call our huddles, right? We have our pre-shift huddles, and this is where we announce it. Sometimes we'll do like promotions, like somebody got moved into a certified restaurant training role, and we'll bring the certificate out and like really congratulate them and get the guest involved too and have them congratulate them. We do things like that. And that has made the biggest impact with my team than any other thing I have ever done. And we just do it every Wednesday. And it's just as simple. It's not like I'm giving away a bunch of stuff. Most of the time, I'm just doing like a little thank you card that's personal, like something that they did personally that I appreciated about them, and just recognizing them in front of their team for doing such a great job. And that's one of the most powerful things that you really can do, especially with this new generation. It's very hard to get that motivation because it is more about value and how they feel as an individual and how we treat them versus just get in and make a paycheck and get out. It's, you really have to foster that type of love and compassion and care in the unit in order to really get those things. Competitions are great if you have a lot of sports people. I've done competitions with day shift versus dinner shift, and I would buy them, like I would buy everybody little funny socks that they could wear. Something silly like that. Just go to the dollar store and spend $1 on some socks. That's nothing. That's nothing. And what is that your employee morale increases, and then your metrics go in the right direction at the same time. And now you don't work nearly as hard as you thought you were working.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And it's interesting what you said about this new generation you mentioned, but I'm assuming you mean Gen Z. Is, I wonder, I guess my question here is, how did they react to coaching? I think that's like an interesting, like, what is their thought of that? Because they want to be recognized, but how do they feel about being coached and developed? Is there a different way you have to do it with them as opposed to some of the, like, maybe millennials that you work with, or I don't even know, you probably have some younger generations as well.
Right. Yeah. To your point, yes, very much. You really have to coach and develop each individual person based on that individual person. So that's why it's really important to develop that relationship with that person, because then you know what motivates them. For example, a lot of the younger generation, and even my generation, it's not always about money. Money's not the main thing that drives them. It's just about being recognized. Hey, I want to be employee of the month. That's what motivates them to do better. And then you have the older generations, like when you're coaching your older generations, you can be very direct and you can just say, hey, go over there and do X, Y, and Z. And they'll be like, cool, gotcha. No worries. I understand, right? You try to do that with other generations and they're just like tears start welling up and their feelings start getting hurt. And you're just like, whoa, that's totally not what I meant at all. I'm so sorry. This is how I meant. When you're coaching nowadays, you have to adapt coaching with compassion. So, even though you want to give a direct, clear message, it's okay to soften the edges. I tell my team that all the time. Deliver your message with a soft edge. Because this way, it's not coming across as you trying to be boss, but you're trying to get them to grow and develop into being more because you care about them, not because you want them to do something.
Yeah, that's super powerful. Yeah, specifically on the compensation piece, I recall it was just a couple of years ago, I saw a survey come out from this workforce, and it was shocking to me that they ranked what is most important to you in a job, and compensation was not number one. And I think intuitively, and there's a lot of folks that still have this attitude in the industry, which is just, I pay you, do your job, right? And there's not a lot of thought, whereas really you have to invert it. It's about thinking, being thoughtful about how you coach people, recognizing people, and building like an actual conscious culture, because those are things that ultimately everyone values, but I think like what we're seeing is more and more so with younger generations. I'm curious, and this is just a tangent, just a slight tangent, but since we're on generational things, do you have any thoughts on this idea of like interview ghosting? I am curious what your thoughts are around that being a generational thing, or if it's just a behavior that's changed with now everything's online. But I noticed there was a big shift. It was 15 years ago now when I started in like the ice cream industry, and like maybe 1 out of 50 interviews might not show up, like, but everyone showed up for an interview. And then even within that time, it started to change. So I'm curious, do you think that's ties into a generational thing? Is there anything that you've noticed unpacking some differences?
I think a lot of it has to do with technology. So to your point you mentioned earlier, if you think about it, we don't even do paper applications. We do online. And now it's gotten to the point to where like, even when we go to reach out to the candidates, we don't pick up the phone and call them. We shoot them a text message just because that's the main way to communicate with people these days. It's the fastest way to get the response. Everybody's got their phone on DNR and you're just like, what in the world? Do you not want a job? And to your point about people showing up and just not even showing up for the interviews. Yeah, I've definitely seen it. And I think it's gotten worse since COVID. COVID was whenever I really, like, at least back in home where I was from in Shreveport, it was really bad. And then when I got to South Carolina, I noticed that it's almost like a norm here. And I had to figure out like what it was. Like, am I supposed to follow up with the interview the same day to make sure that they're still coming? Or is that just, but what I think is happening is because we as an industry is allowing it to be okay and still rescheduling their interview, they're going to keep doing it. So it's changing the way that people are trying to find jobs and they're like, oh, I've been able to do this at X, Y, and Z, and they just rescheduled and I got hired on there. So that's how, because we don't teach people how to do interviews. We don't teach people what to do. We don't teach them to dress up and look presentable. I have so many people come in with slippers on and pajama tops. It's like, we don't teach the skills for them to know. So it's, what are we supposed to do? If we don't teach them, they're just going to wing it the best they can. And if it works, they're going to keep doing it that way.
Yeah, if there's no consequences for not showing up for an interview, what makes them not do it? And it sounds like people will eventually learn that's not something they can do in the professional world if they have a good experience at an employer. They have a good mentor like yourself. If they learn those, they can't show up with their pajamas on and slippers and whatnot. But not every employer is teaching their employees that.
Oh,
it
yeah.
might be a job for them. They might be thinking more about the bottom line or whatnot. So then they're not learning those things. And then when they leave to go somewhere else, like to your store, they don't have it. They don't realize it. I wonder how much a good manager would change those things, right?
Oh, dramatically. If leadership would just change their mindset, the entire industry would grow into a whole different era. And it would make it to where we have all these people that are now productive, that understand real life job skills, regardless if they're staying in the food industry or not. These are things that they can realistically take anywhere, right? Anywhere. But it's to your point, if you don't have a manager or a leader that's in there that has the mindset that I am here to grow, so I want my people to grow, then nothing's ever going to change. And that's what my biggest focus in life is, to change that mindset of people to be more of, this is not just a stepping stone. This is something I could do something with, regardless if I stay in the industry or not. It's something I can learn from.
Yeah. How do you find those people that have those same values as you, or are coachable enough that they can uh, emulate the same values or fit into your culture and lead in the same way, right? Lead your people in the same way that you do. How do you find those managers that like know how to drive results through team and not numbers?
The truth is, you don't find them, you develop them.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the reality. Is you as a leader have to represent what you model, right? You have to come in, and every single day that you show up, what you do, how you present yourself, how you speak, how you coach, how you walk around the store, every single thing that you do is being watched, right? And you have this ripple effect of this impact that you make throughout the entire unit. And when you get managers in, most of them are from other concepts that don't have the same kind of mindset, right? They're just like, hey, it's just here for a paycheck. So you have to develop it. You have to teach it, because they don't know. It's almost like getting a college degree for the food industry, right? You're just teaching them the skills to be a successful leader. And what I typically do is, when I interview, there's a few important questions that I ask. But one of the most important questions you can ask is if they're coachable. Asking a question that is surrounded around determining whether or not they are a coachable person. If they're not coachable, you will not ever be able to develop them in the way that you need to develop them to fit your culture, which means they're automatically not going to fit your culture. And then the second question I ask is, what do you see as most important and why? Is it your customer service? Is it your employee morale? Or is it your metrics? Because that determines what they see in value and how they see the industry, what the core points are, right? So if they pick metrics, then you know that they're not going to understand that we're a people-based business. And then you can do a follow-up question on it, right? And you can find out why they decided to go with a metric base rather than a people base. And maybe it's just something they didn't teach. But again, if they're not coachable, it's not going to help you at all. But you're never going to find that manager that's going to lead in the mindset that you want them to. You just have to have the ability to have the ownership of, hey, I want my team to look like this and be consistent. I cannot stress that enough. If you're not consistent, you will never get where you want to be to get your team the way that you need them to be.
Absolutely. Wow. I love those questions that you gave. Those are like really amazing takeaway examples of what someone can ask during an interview to try to get to the base of what someone finds most important, right? And if they're coachable, and if they're going to be an asset to the team in the way you want them to be. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing those. I think those are really important for people to hear. Shifting a little bit, you had mentioned to me that you are developing a blog. Tell us a little bit about that, if it's okay, if it's not top secret.
Okay. Yeah. So I am actually working on a leadership blog. The name of it is called People Over Patties. Isn't that cute?
Oh
I
my
know.
gosh. Yes. Adorable.
And it's great because when you pull up the website and you do it on the mobile, I have a little hamburger as the menu. So it's the cutest thing. But yeah, so it's really directed towards leadership and developing a mindset of how to be a leader versus being a manager, trying to shift the industry from the old school direction of do bottom line only and make people see that it is a people-based business. So I give them articles and stuff about things that I've learned over the years. I don't know all the answers, but I've learned a lot, and I still learn every day. I still listen to a lot of leadership books, and I'm still gaining information, and I'm always evolving and growing. And I want to share that knowledge with everybody. The blog actually launches Monday, so I'm super excited. The first article will be out. Super, definitely subscribe, can check it out. I would love to get the feedback. But yeah, it's just really a place to help everybody get a better mindset about where they work. So number one, you're happier in doing what you do.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. If you're not happy doing what you do, you're not going to be able to change anything, because that's just the way it is. You impact everything. So if I can teach people how to change that mentality about it, yeah, it would just make the food industry just way better and create these new leaders like way down the road.
Wow.
No
That's
kidding.
interesting. Derek,
Yeah.
did you have a question about it?
Oh, no, I'm just excited about that. I think
Too.
that's an awesome, and congrats on the upcoming launch. I think one of the really interesting things that kind of harkens back to, you talked about developing people, and we talked about, especially in QSR, there's a lot of opportunities for leadership growth, right? Not a lot of other industries where you can very quickly become a shift leader and then maybe up to an assistant, like pretty quickly relative to a lot of other industries. And just tying all of this together with the blog, as well as leadership, is 100% transferable. It doesn't matter what industry. That, for me, coming from ice cream stores to tech, it was surprising at how much transferred. It was like just the context was different. Oh, our sales team and our customer support team is at conflict. This sounds a lot like the day shift versus the night shift, right? And so really, obviously, I hope the folks that are listening to this, no matter what the industry, tune into this, because I think obviously based on everything you've shared, obviously you have spent a lot of time investing in really developing yourself as a leader. And we're always thankful for people who are willing to share that with others as well. Congrats. And
Thank you.
again, it's People Over Patties.
That's it. People Over Patties.
Love it. So
People
folks
Over
should
Patties.
look for that. Jolene, this has been awesome. Again, really thank you for your time. And hopefully we'll have you on again, maybe a few months after the launch, and maybe there's some articles we can talk about that you put out, but look forward to reading that. And thank you again.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure being here and chatting with y'all.
Awesome. Bye for now.
There's a lot there, Derek. There's so many questions, so many topics that we got into with Jolene that are so important. I love that she gives like really succinct advice about the way she does things that other people can take from.
Yeah, agreed. And not to toot our own horn, specifically you, because you do a lot of the outreach, but we seem to get a lot of people that get it. And the overarching theme with Jolene, which I think is said in different ways with most of our guests, is that after being in the business long enough, you realize that people are the business. And it's a cliche, but like really believing that and understanding that everything comes down to how you treat your people from their first day, how you invest in them, how you develop them, what kind of opportunities you show them, what time you make for them, all these things. It's this recurring theme with everyone, but that is not everyone in this industry. And I think that's worth noting, because we've got some really great examples here.
Yeah, thank you. And also, I think it relates to two things. When you think about something or feel a certain way about something, you tend to attract the same type of people, right? So if you're a negative person, you tend to attract negative people. If you're someone that like deeply cares about people and getting into like bigger, larger conversations and giving advice and like stuff that we do on this podcast, I just go about my life like that, and you do too. And we tend to attract other people that think like us.
You just can't help it.
Yeah. But I think the same thing is true for someone like Jolene or Connie or Stephanie or Ronita, that they, in their day-to-day lives, they are that way. They love people and love connecting with people. It helps that they surround themselves with great people on their teams as their managers, as their team members, and they have the ability to lift those people up too.
Yeah, amen. I will harp on one little thing, and I think we've maybe talked about it before already. Jolene really stressed especially like how you invest in people, and we've heard it with a couple people, the importance of one-on-ones, like carving out time, having specific time that is for employees to talk about what's going on in their personal lives, talk about any conflicts or issues in the workplace, and then giving feedback. And I think that's just like one of those things that's so overlooked in so many of these industries. You assume that just because you're shoulder to shoulder with someone, that you know what's going on in their life. And a lot of the time, if people don't have that like that space, that defined space to like, this is when I talk about this, they're not necessarily going to open up.
Yeah. And like the example from Jolene's example with that woman that was on her team that she helped, that literally saved a life, right? Like she was struggling with mental health. There's so much there. I think it relates to the conversation with Connie too about making sure people are, that your team has the ability to show up to work, right? They have all the things they need in place to show up for work, whether that's mental health or transportation, childcare, housing, like we talked about with Connie, but also then giving them a space to speak about that with someone at work is
Right.
really important, like Jolene did for that woman.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Well, this was a really good episode. We covered a lot. Kathleen, I'm curious, what is your shifting question? Shifting questions are our sort of way of ending on a sort of actionable question or something thought-provoking that people can think about for their specific business.
My shifting question is around Win Wednesdays that Jolene explained that she does. So my question is, what is something you can do this week to celebrate one or two people on your team in a public way? And then additional challenge there is in a public way for something not solely related to their numbers, right? So for something that's not just a metric, maybe it is for a way they interacted with a guest. Maybe it's for a way they picked up a shift or helped a team member. That's just an additional little like question or challenge, I guess. But yeah, how can you celebrate people publicly this week?
Yeah, solid one. Yeah, and you're exactly right. I love that she had mentioned this. Like, it can't just be metrics. People are not that excited. Maybe temporarily, let's get as many upsells as we can or get in as many orders shipped or whatever it is, like depending on the business. That is very short-lived, but the public appreciation is powerful.
Yeah, if you do this consistently, you can do numbers occasionally, but it needs to be more about people, like we just talked about,
Always people.
and noticing how their effects are important and noticed and celebrating them.
Yeah.
Your shifting question this week, Derek. Or do you have two or three?
I always have a million, but I'll narrow it down. Oh, let's try just for one. There was almost a small note that Jolene had mentioned that she doesn't call her managers. She calls them leaders. And that is a subtle but very important distinction. And I've seen this in many different businesses, like slightly different labeling and things like that. And there's bad ways to do it. I don't know that certain businesses call certain employees sandwich artists. I don't know that necessarily has the same impact, but language is really important. It sets the tone for the culture you want to set. And so my shifting question is, does the language that you're currently using for your team members, your leaders, for how you speak about your employees and your team, does that actually reflect the culture that you're trying to set and trying to continue to build on? And I think back to some of our past experiences as well. And one of the things that I always tried to make a point of saying is our team rather than my team. Just because you're the leader doesn't make them your team, right? You'll never, it's interesting, right? You would never hear a team captain say, my team, or even a coach in a sport. You'd never hear them say, my team. But a lot of the time that happens in business. And it's subtle things like that that I think do really make an impact.
I totally agree. I absolutely love that question. We saw it back in the day with Chick-fil-A. They make a very purposeful display of calling it's not franchisee, It's never franchisee. It's an
Right.
owner operator, right? They are operators, they're owners. With Dunkin' Donuts, they do not call them cashiers, they call them team members, like very specifically. And I think that's amazing. If someone's calling me a certain thing instead of just team member instead of cashier, or operator instead of franchisee, or leader instead of manager, that is going to affect the way you think about yourself. I know it would have an effect on me as a manager or as a team member. So I love that.
Yeah, it's this tone setting thing. And obviously the importance is it can't just be like the title on paper. If it's a job title, it's got to be the thing you repeat all the time. And that's what culture is. It's like the habits that you consistently do every day.
Absolutely. It just actually made me think of something. In the tech, white collar business world, right? We put a lot of importance on titles. People will fight for a title change even though they don't get pay increase, right? That title means so much to them. But we don't, I don't think it is as discussed or thought about or brought up in restaurants, hospitality, and QSR, that like title is extremely important, or at least what you call someone is extremely important. So I think this conversation is needed because I think those titles matter. And if they matter so much in white collar work, they matter in everything, right?
Absolutely. A couple of good shifting questions for both around the theme of like culture building. So we tied in a theme there, which was Jolene's main overarching theme with all the different topics we talked about.
Yeah. And one other shout out, just because we didn't talk about it yet, her blog. I'm so excited to read it. Oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing. And fun fact, she is so humble. She didn't even mention this in the podcast, but she told me about it in our, before we recorded, that she learned recently to code just so that she could build the website for her blog.
Wow.
She goes above and beyond, right? Like, I just think that's so cool. It just shows how not only passionate she is, but like when she's passionate about something, she'll go deep, right?
Yep. It's a theme, right? The way you do one thing is the way you do everything, right? Awesome. We can probably talk forever especially about culture, but we'll save some for the next time. Until then.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.